Always learning and growing. Attracting the right people and keeping your vision in focus every day. This is the Brian Covey Show.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Brian Covey Show. So today, I'm really excited about bringing on Victor Maya, and he's a guy that we connected up through similar circles, which you guys know I believe in the power of association, the power of who you're around really does matter. And today we're going to unpack, not only is Victor an author, he just wrote a book, Conquer, which I cannot wait to unpack and share some of the stories and just some of the lessons that are shared there. But Victor's also a business owner. He's running multi-businesses here. And I love your mission statement about wanting to make an impact in the lives of others, and especially in the minority community. And you're one that I love that you're using your talents and gifts to give back, because I think that's what we were put on the earth to do. So I can't wait to dig into this more today. Welcome, Victor. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Brian. Thank you, brother.
Well, man, hey, it's one of those, we're in quarantine world. We've started connecting up with people a little bit more and more. And you're somebody I've been following for a while. And I noticed when your book was about to come out, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute, but that caught my attention because that's something I think a lot of people at some point in their life, whether they've done it or they want to do it, they think about, hey, could I write my own book? Could that be a story that I tell? So I know we'll talk about it later. But man, I'd love for people just to hear a little bit about just who you are personally, so that way we can get into knowing you and share a little bit more about your story today.
Well, man, like I told you before, man, I'm going to tell you where I'm from and everything. And I always tell people straight up, I'm an immigrant. You know, I came here to the United States at the age of 6. You know, and I arrived from Tampico, Tamaulipas, Mexico, which is, part of Mexico. Yeah. And I arrived to Houston, Texas. And I always tell people, man, that one thing that I still remember to this day, that when I was 6, it was that when we arrived to I-45 and I saw all those glass buildings in Houston, and my brother Hector was on my left and my sister Sandra was on my right, and I was in the middle. And I woke up because I was tired of just, swimming, going through the dirt, going through the woods. And man, when I was 6, I just looked up and I saw these glass buildings, like I said, man. I said to myself in Spanish, man, aquí voy a hacer algo, which it translates to like, hey, right here, I'm going to do something. And I never understood why I said that, Brian. I never understood until one day, which was about 2.5 years ago, I was journaling, because I always journal every morning.
Yeah.
My journal, and I said to myself, like, Vic, come on, man. All you knew was taking showers with a cup and a bucket in dirt roads, man. Like, you were like shocked.
Yeah.
In glass buildings. So that's one thing I remember when I was 6, man. Another thing that I remember, it was when I was 10 years old. My mom, my mother, man, she always had 2 or 3 jobs. And one of those jobs was working at a bar. And I used to hate her coming home at 2 and 3 in the morning, smelling like smoke. But one thing I talk about in my book is one thing my mom is, she has this mentality of whatever it takes to take care of the family, because she was a single mother.
Yeah.
It was my brother Hector, my sister Sandra, and me here in the United States.
Wow.
And I had 3 other sisters in Mexico. And it was hard for a mother. So yeah. I used to always see her come home at 2 and 3 in the morning. And I remember one day she opened the door and I can hear it just open, the front door. And I go running to her like, Mom, 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 Mom. And she's like, in Spanish, she asked me, ¿Qué pasó, mijo? Which it translates to, hey, what happened, son?
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, I need 2 luggage. And she's like, for what? And I'm like, well, I need 2 luggage so I can fill them up with money and get us out of poverty. Wow. And you see, man, because since I was 10, I knew what it was to struggle. Yeah. And it was a struggle for my mom. It was a struggle. And even to this day, man, one thing, even when I promised my mom when I was 10 years old, it took me 20 years to fulfill that promise. It took me 20 years. And I say it took me too long because through the whole journey, I spent too much time on thinking about me. Because when I was 22 years old, I want to say 22, 23, that's when I first saw my first million.
Wow.
And I always tell people, man, hey, you give $1 million to a kid. I still call myself a kid when I was that young, that came from the hood. What are they going to do? They're going to go and buy bling.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to go and buy Rolexes, cars, everything.
All the good stuff.
And forgot about mama,
Yeah.
Forgot about the family, even my wife, because my wife, a little bit about my wife, she's been with me since I was, my wife, she got pregnant at the age of 15 by me. And I talk about that in the book. And being real, I tell people straight up, and I did it on purpose, man. I was selfish. I was 17 years old. And I mean, hey, I tell people, hey, I talk about it in the book. I did it on purpose. And man, my wife, she's been with me, like I said, since she was 15. Now she's 33 years old. Wow. And I forgot about that because, again, I was all about me. Forgot about helping others, forgot about helping my mom, the people that loved me, that took care of me. I forgot about them. And it didn't take me till I turned about 32 years old when I started changing my mentality. That's when I started changing, because in 2010, let me go back to 2010. That's when I was able to deliver my mom the money that I promised. So she can pay off her house, pay off her cars, and do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
And it took me too long because I was stuck. And that's the reason, like I told you, that I wrote Conquer, because I talk about everything that I've been able to conquer. I was able to conquer that poverty. I was able to conquer myself, which it was the most important part, is how to conquer myself.
Yeah.
Because again, man, I was very selfish. I was a very selfish individual.
Like many of us.
Like you said, many of us. I was the type of guy that didn't have no plan.
Yeah.
Didn't have no end game, because now I have learned that everything's created twice. It's first mentally and then physically.
Yes.
Back then, I didn't know that. Back then, I was like, man, I'm just going to do whatever it takes and go this way.
Yeah. Well, how would you? I mean, at that age, I'm thinking about when you're 6 and then you're talking about this until even you're 10. Can you think back to what that was like when you got here and you're seeing these tall buildings and all this stuff, and you're like, okay, there's this new world that's now been presented to you. You start having these dreams and like ideas of, okay, we're not going to be in poverty forever. What were some of the things that the younger Victor, what did you start to do, or as you look back, that mindset, what was happening at that point in your life to make you want to dream bigger, you think?
One thing, like I was telling you, is my mom. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Seeing the poverty level, man, seeing food stamps. I knew it was not normal. Not having a car, I had to push a cart all the way, like about 2 miles from the apartment all the way to the grocery store to go and pick up groceries. And then a man one time, and I will share the story, for a man one time to tell my mom while she was paying with food stamps. And this man said to her, like lady, like, how are you ever going to pay society back after all we have done for you? And my mom didn't understand what he said because it was in Spanish. I mean, it was in English, and my mom doesn't understand English. So I did, but I was hiding behind my mom. And my mom pushed me from the back and asked me in Spanish. She asked me in Spanish, like, what did he say? And I translated to her. And then she told me, hey, you tell him this, baby. And I'm like, what? And I translated. And I told that man, and I go, well, sir, my mom said that she'll never be able to pay society back. But someday that I will be able to pay society back in many ways that you cannot imagine.
Wow.
And that hit me, because I was like, man, how am I ever going to pay society back? That was put on my shoulders, man. Like, man, we're on food stamps, we're on this, we're getting Medicaid. I knew it was not normal, because it wasn't normal to go to school, have the government pay you for pay all your meals.
Sure.
I knew it was not normal. Everything was free.
Yeah.
I knew it was not normal.
So then out of there, you start moving forward. And I love that some of these stories came out in your book, which is inspiring because I want to read it. It's one of those that when I saw you writing it and working on it, I was like, I know there's going to be some stories in there, and some of those you've already shared. What really made you want to put that into a book? And what was kind of the, because typically people have a motivation for why they're writing the book. What were you thinking when you said, hey, I'm going to write all this out?
Well, I'm going to go back when I met Coach Burt.
Yeah.
I always say, man, I gotta give credit where credit's due. I'm never gonna act like this guy that knows it all, because I won't. But it was about 2 years ago when I went to go and visit him in Tennessee. And literally, they gave me a schedule of what time they were going to pick me up, what time I was going to be flying with him and everything. And it was crazy. It was a crazy schedule because it was like, man, I got to be up by 4 a.m. because they're going to pick me up at 4:30.
He doesn't play.
Like, what's wrong with this guy, man? Something's wrong with him. So I'm the kind of person that I analyze everything. So I paid attention to every little detail of what they're doing. So I noticed how he brushed his teeth before getting in the plane. And that's another thing, because I was like, hey, no one told me we're going to be traveling to another state or something. Do I got to get a plane ticket? Like, no. You're going to be flying in a jet. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. But in my mind, I was like, oh, man, yes, I'm going to be flying in a jet. I had my Rolex Presidential. I had my blue suit. I was all like, man, I'm about to show
looking good.
I'm looking good. Well, what struck me is what he told me, man. We were in the air. And he looks at me and says, Victor, what is your moonshot? And it's like 6:20 a.m. in the morning that day. And because the turbines, you can't hear what he said.
Right.
But for some reason, I thought he said moonshine. So I'm like, man, this guy wants to drink, man. It's 6:20 a.m. in the morning. I don't want to drink.
A little early, Coach.
And then I look at him again. He's like, Victor, what is your moonshot? And I stayed shocked for a little bit, and I looked outside just of the jet, on the just to the clouds, and I started thinking about my past. I started thinking about when I used to play in the creek when I was in Mexico, when I was a kid. That's why I wrote in the book. I wrote, when see a little, see a lot. When you have a lot, learn how to see nothing.
Yeah.
Because when I had those little rocks in the creek, I felt like I had a lot. And now that when people have a lot, offices, buildings, cars, then you want more, and you get stuck in that wheel of more. So when you have more, now I tell myself, Victor, learn how to see nothing, man. You don't have nothing. Stop.
Yes.
You can't take it with you. So going back to the story, man, with him, I stay shocked for a little bit because I start thinking. And then he tells me, Victor, let me tell you a story. And I go, okay, tell me a story. He's like, look, there was a time Mother Teresa had to go to Mexico, Tijuana, Mexico, to help the poor, help people in need. But when she was there, she contracted all these diseases. So they had to fly her back to the United States. And she went to La Jolla, California to get better. And while she was in the hospital bed, all these doctors were outside the door. And they were fighting because they wanted to be the one who said, I heal Mother Teresa.
Right.
And Mother Teresa gets up, gets a sheet of paper, and makes a sign-up sheet, puts it in the front door, and says, hey, while I'm here in this hospital, I expect for y'all to sign up and go across that border and help those poor people.
Yeah.
He goes, and they all listen because she was a person of interest. She was a person of influence. And he looked at me and said, Victor, hey, you're a person of influence.
Yeah.
What are you doing, son? I'm sorry to tell you, but that watch you have, you can't take it with you.
Yep.
You cannot take all your trophies. You cannot take anything with you. So what are you doing? And that struck me, because that night when I got home, I got back to the hotel, and I just sat there, and I'll be real with you, Brian, I started tearing up.
Yeah.
I took my watch off, and I said, man, for real, man, what is this for?
Yeah.
What is all this about, man? I mean, come on, I'm getting stuck.
Yeah.
So right there, I go, okay, I told him I'm in. And a little thing people don't know about this, I was just talking to a friend of mine today about it. Well, through all that process of all those years about conquering myself, and it took me a while. I want to say I started conquering myself. I'm still conquering myself more and more every single year.
Always a journey.
Every single day. It's a journey.
Yeah. It's
a journey. And when I was getting coached by Bert, and while I was doing all this, people don't know this, but I almost gone through a divorce with my wife because it was all about me. My health, I felt good, but really I was not that great. Yeah. I didn't know all my levels were down. He was the one who pushed me to get a health coach. I got a health coach, and that guy pushed me, got my levels right where I was supposed to be at.
Nice.
I was taking care of myself even more than what I used to. Started learning how to create systems more. So that's the thing, that somebody gave me these skills. Someone took the time to teach me, coach me.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, you know what, man, you're gonna have to pay it forward. And and like he told me, man, I mean, hey, you got to write a book. I'm like, what? No, you got to write a book. I'm like, coach, hey, my grammar is bad, man. I'm like, have you seen my spelling? Like, it's bad. Like, I can't, like, people laugh at me when I send emails. Even when I post on social media, before I post, I got to send it to one of my guys here in the company that does all our marketing. And then he has to make it look better.
Wordsmith.
He goes, no, this doesn't make sense. When I'm creating blogs, I got editors that are looking at my blogs and they're making them look prettier.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, you're not a writer, but it's all right. It's all right.
We can work with it.
We can work with that. And that's the thing, man, that I have learned is like I talk about in the book, is I'm not the smartest, I'm not the fastest, and I'm not the best person in my company.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm very good at to this day is I know how to hire people that are smarter, faster, and better than me. And I'm okay with that.
That's right.
And I'm okay with that. And people laugh when they come to the offices. We get a kick out of this because, they look at me, they're like, man, well, he's not the owner, you know what I mean? He's Hispanic to start off with. So it's funny because they go after some of my guys that are like they're older than me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, great. I don't care, Hey. That's what I want.
Let them do it. That's the best leaders is, I've shared that so many times, is if you can assemble, it's almost like assembling the Avengers or one of those all-star teams of, they all bring different gifts and strengths to the table, but none of the best leaders had it all figured out.
No.
We, as leaders, sometimes that can be the thing that you fall on the most and struggle with, is thinking you have to have it all figured out, thinking you have to have all the answers. And the reality is the people on your team, that's why they're there. They want to be part of that team. And so you've assembled this great team. I would love to know, as you were talking through, I just thought about this, as we've mentioned a couple of times, you and I were talking about systems. So how important are those to running? Because you're running multiple companies, you're doing things now, obviously writing the book, you're getting out there to make a bigger impact and influence. How important is that for you to have the right systems in place? And can you talk about what those that are listening, what are some systems that you really rely on that make things work efficiently and well for your team?
One of the systems that, like I said about conquering yourself, one of the systems that I use, especially even in my life, is I call it the whole person. And I'm pretty sure you heard of that.
Oh yeah.
It's all four parts, the mind, the heart, the body, the spirit. And it's 4 different intelligence. The mind is the IQ, it's intellectual quotient. The SQ is spiritual quotient. EQ, emotional quotient. And then you got the PQ, physical quotient. So every day, the way I plan my day is I do this, I call it playing the tape. And I talk about it in the book, playing the tape. So I wake up in the morning, anywhere from 4 to 4:30. And sometimes I don't want to wake up, but I got to wake up so I can play the tape. So the first thing I do every morning is I hit the SQ, spiritual quotient, which is spending time with God. Yeah. So I spend time with God every morning. And then after that, I got a journal specifically for God. It's how I pray to God, and I like to write. So I always say this about journaling, that I have learned through the years that journaling is not for me. It's not for me. It's for my grandkids I'm not going to get to see. It's a roadmap for them. Mm-hmm. So as I'm writing, they can go back to the journals and see, man, my grandfather was writing this. And I write on cotton paper. And I write with, I'm addicted to these things, man, by the way, fountain pens.
Yeah.
One of my addictions, thanks to this guy named Tom Love. You might know him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got me addicted. But going back to that, after that, I hit my intellectual quotient. That's the mind. So I love to read. One thing about me, Brian, I didn't go to college. I don't have no degrees. I just graduated from high school, and that's it. So my degrees and all that stuff has been self-help books, psychology books. I mean, I read almost everything you can think of. So that's the IQ. And then after that, the EQ is the emotional quotient. is spending time with my family, loving on people, helping people.
Yes.
That's the emotional quotient, because I understand that the heart's need is to love and to be loved.
Yeah.
So I gotta love, but also I gotta let people love me, man. I'm okay with people loving me.
That's right.
You know, you got to. That's just a part of you as a human being. And then after that is the PQ, is the physical quotient, is the body, because I know the body's need is to live. So I got to make sure I feed it right. You know, so I feed it the right nutrition. I don't drink soda pop. I try my best not to eat too many tortillas. That's just being honest.
Yeah.
But at 5:30 p.m., anywhere from 5 to 6, I hit the gym. I work out 5 times a week. And that's very important for me, is to stay dynamic, especially with my physical shape. And,
so important.
And that's a very important system for me. You know, and I want to say, you know, like when I got this from Bert, and this is all Stephen Covey. Like I tell people, hey, there's nothing new under the sun. If you want more information of this, go and read the whole book of The 8 Habits from Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
You'll find the whole system of what I'm talking about. But one thing I always tell people, there's nothing new under the sun, but the whole problem with nowadays is execution. It's how to execute. So I have learned how to execute the system. So that's one of the most important systems that I can say that I run. And I mean, there's more systems, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, one thing I'm still old school. I still plan my day.
Oh yeah.
You know, I plan my day on paper. Nothing's electronic. So that's just, everybody has their own systems. And, you know, what works for me might not work for you.
Well, and that could be one of the most important ones. I was introduced to a guy, Raul Velasquez, a few years ago, and literally everything was built around that whole person theory. And it was stacking, taking each day at a time. And it talked about everything from the spiritual side to the relationship side and all that as you went through. And if you didn't get all of those right in your relationships or your health or your spiritual journey and all of those running together, you might make all this money in the world over here in your business, but at some point it will crumble, or it will be worth nothing. People will forget about it. It will come and go, just like the days come and go. And to have a legacy and to build something, like, and you were talking about that, like your grandkids and your great grandkids could read it. The legacy for guys like us is going to be built around that and the things that we do and share. And you got to have those parts operating together. That's tough, man. I mean, honestly, is dads, husbands, business leaders getting all of that in the right flow, I call it, because
oh yeah,
you know, people talk about balance all the time. I don't know what your thoughts are on this one, but man, I've heard people like, man, I'm gonna find my balance and all this stuff there. I'm like, there ain't no balancing in this life. You're integrating in, like you said, you're going to go work out later in the day. I work out early in the morning because I know the later the day goes, the less likely it is that I'm going. So,
yeah,
you know,
it's funny how you say that about balance, because my friend she was my life coach, one of my first life coaches I've ever had. And that lady, I mean, brought me up to another level I never thought I could.
Yeah.
And this lady, she thought I was crazy because I had a form that I created where I put good habit, bad habit, neutral habit. And I log in for 2 weeks, all my habits.
Yes.
Because people always say, well, I don't have time. And I'm like, well, if you audit your time, I'm pretty sure you do have time, but it's how you're managing your time. Because I could tell you from when I wake up, I know exactly where I'm going to land, when I'm going to finish today, because by 2:00, I'm done. I'm done for the day. You can say everything that's prioritized, that's priority.
Yeah.
From there, I go into the mode of helping my team, meeting with people, showing them love, seeing how I can help them, you know, coaching them, stuff like that. So it's all a system. But by 2:00, I'm done. And people be like, why? I go, well, it's all about, I have understood my brain, people's brain. And it goes back to the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
It's that the decisions that I don't want to do, again, the things that I don't want to do, I get them done early in the morning.
Yep.
The hardest things, the conversations I don't want to have, I just have them early in the morning and just get them done. So by noon or by 2:00, I'm done with all my priorities. So that's another system that I have learned how to run. But let me take you back a little bit, man, because when it comes to systems, in the book, I talk about I didn't used to be a system person. And I talk about that in the book. I used to be this guy that has ADD. I used to be taking 30 milligrams of Adderall back in the days. And the lady who I told you, her name is Lori Johnson, Vegas. And this lady told me, no, Victor, it's not that you can't get organized, or it's not that you have ADD, it's that you don't have a system. So she taught me a system, and it was what's it called? The Covey Planner, the Franklin Covey Planner.
Oh yeah.
That's what she got me on. And then from there, everything started growing.
Yeah.
And she told me, I'm going to make you dangerously organized. And I'm like, no, there's no way. I'll never get organized.
Yeah.
That's not who I am.
Right.
It's not who I am. I made all these excuses in my whole life that's not who I am. I'm just what you call a natural sales guy. Speed.
Yeah.
And then I was wrong. And now I go back to her and she's like, what did I tell you? I was going to make you dangerously organized. Ooh. And she's right. I got it to the point where I know where I'm going to wear the whole week. I mean, everything's a system to the point where I know exactly where I'm going to push the button of the coffee at what time.
Yeah.
When I'm going to put my headphones on. People are like, dude, you look like a robot. I'm like, no, let's put it like this. You got your conscious mind and you got your unconscious mind. Either you're still planning. Either you're planning consciously or you're planning unconsciously.
Yeah.
You're planning. And that's what people don't understand is that no matter what, you're going to plan.
Well, there's such power in that unconscious mind. And the more I've studied in that realm of like understanding what we reprogram that have been programs as a kid all the way up through. And you're right. And those are the excuses we fall into. It's that I don't have time, or, I'm not good at this, or this, that, and the other. And it's like, hey man, we're all struggling with different levels of that. But the more that unconscious mind gets programmed in, and your point, it's just, you don't even have to think. And the fewer decisions we make means probably the better choices we make, right? On the other side. That's why, like for me, I was sharing, when I go in the mornings to work out, it's like, okay, there's a scheduled time, workout's written. I don't want to think about it, right? I just want to show up and do it. And then I know that day I'll have energy. And I think for leaders, like, you're running a team. I'd be curious to know how you think that helps other leaders. Because I've noticed, and maybe it's during quarantine and different things, but even quarantine, whether people had time before or during quarantine, it didn't change, right? It's like we actually were given more time for many of us, truthfully more time, even though it's integrated and it's different. The I don't have time excuse, I can't buy it. Although I see where people come from and you see how they've been programmed almost just to say that. How do you get then from you talked about this earlier, I'm gonna try to connect the dots on this one, is you're the leader of your team, now connecting the insights and wisdom you've learned. How do you then share that with your team so they can come along and live that out as well?
Well, I want to say, one thing I always talk about is my number one weapon. And it goes back to the culture. Yeah. I always tell people you can have a great strategy plan, you can have a great execution plan, and you can have the cash. You can have all the cash. You can go to Loan Depot and get a big old loan. Right. It doesn't matter, If you don't have a great team, again, culture, nothing's going to move because everything sits on culture. And it took me a while to learn this, Brian, because I always tell people, because they look at my culture now, they're like, man, but you have a great culture. Everybody comes with batteries included. I'm like, well, let me take this back. We didn't used to be like this. They're like, what happened? It was me. Again, it goes back to the leader. I didn't know how to lead my people. Yeah. I created a culture about 2.5, 3 years ago, that if you looked at my company, it looked like something from Game of Thrones. Everybody against everybody. This guy didn't like this guy. And I was like, man, what the heck's wrong? But then we did an assessment, an assessment on the company. And what the employees did, they did an assessment on me. Mm-hmm. And on the whole company of what we need to change and all that. And I was all excited, Brian, because I was like, man, finally, man, I'm going to get down to what's the problem and who I'm going to have to fire.
Yeah.
Well, I got the assessment back, and guess what? Who I had to fire? Me. That's what I had to fire. It was me, not no one else. It was me. That's the person who I had to fire.
Man.
And I still remember me crumbling that piece of paper, going home, whining to mama, aka my wife.
Yeah.
My wife is like, "Oh, hey, if you're gonna fire somebody, fire yourself, because you're the one creating this problem." And she was right. So I went to this place called, I forgot that place called. It's kind of like a gas station. It's a gas station here in Oklahoma, and it's on State Road 66. And in that gas station, there's a lot of bikers, and everybody had Harleys. But what I noticed about the Harleys is that there was white, there was black, there was brown, there was short people, there was tall people, there was lesbians, there were gay, they didn't care who you were. If you rode a Harley, you were a brother of theirs. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, hold on. How can I create a culture like that? So then I went into working in our core values. That was our first thing we did, but we did it as a team. We created the core values and then the mission of the company as a team, not as an individual.
Yeah.
And then he goes, the hardest part I had to do is live it and let them see me live it. And when I screw up, because sometimes I do screw up, like one of our core values is responsibility. When something goes wrong, I'm like, it's my fault. They're like, no, dude. Like, how's it your fault? Like, yeah, no, I'm the leader, dude. It is my fault. It is my fault.
Yep.
Because a lot of leaders, they're the first one. Oh no, man, it's this guy's fault. You know, what I mean, he was a bad hire. I'm like, well, who hired him to start off with? You did.
Circles back.
Yeah, it circles back. So that's what I talk about in the book. It's about the core values. And one thing I learned about core values is that and this is what I learned from Rocky Garza. Rocky Garza, one time, we talked and he said, Victor, your core values is not who you are right now. It's who you're going to be in the future. Because it's who you want to be. And I didn't get that part because I was like, yeah, he's right. Because I was not responsible. Remember, I told you I almost got a divorce, and it was because I never took responsibility of my mistakes. I was always playing like, oh, no, it's not my fault. I was always playing like the victim. Yeah. Until I learned like, oh, yeah, it's my fault. You're like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, it is my fault. Everything's my fault. I am the man of the household, man. You know what I mean? It is my fault. Right. Something goes wrong right here. It's my fault. And talking about COVID-19, people ask me the same question, like, hey, man, how did you do all this? Like, how did it impact y'all? I'm like, a little. It did. It impacted everybody. And some people can say, oh, no, man, it was the best year ever. It's been the best. And I'm like, well, you're lying to yourself. It's like Matt Monero says, you're living in false. Yeah, false narrative. False. Unless you get your profit and loss statement every 2 weeks or every month, you'll know the truth. The numbers don't lie. That's right. I tell people all the time, you can sell all you want, but unless you look at the profit and loss statement and the last number and the profit margin, those two numbers don't lie. Don't worry about the gross. Right. Gross is lies. I don't care about the gross. Give me the profit margin, the net profit, and give me the net income, the last number. Yeah. Those are the two most important numbers.
Isn't that the truth? Well, as I hear you saying that too, there was a book given to me. You've probably read Extreme Ownership.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as you're talking about that, I mean, that was a book that shifted my mindset right away, where it was like, you think as a leader you have ownership or responsibility, not to the level, that Leif and Jocko were talking about there. And that changed my trajectory as a leader. I remember back, were there any books? I mean, I know you've written yours. Were there any that inspired you or books that you would say as a leader that you would highly recommend, like on your top list of people have got to read this?
Atomic Habits is one. Yes. That's one of my favorites. And also Meet Your Happy Chemicals. If you can find that book, it's about $60. But that's one of my favorite books because I learned about psychology, especially my happy chemicals. And I use a lot of that book, a lot of that knowledge to create systems. Because again, I always tell people is what you know is awesome, but also it's about your intentions. What is your intentions with the information.
That's right.
So by me knowing about the happy chemicals is how can I help this person trigger their happy chemicals to impact their lives and rise. Not to, I know your happy chemicals, so I'm going to use it to my advantage so I can get what I want from you. That's not the right way to do things. It's about what you're going to do with your knowledge to help this person. So yeah, the happy chemicals is another one of my favorites.
Dude, I love that. Well, as we're wrapping up, I know we could unpack a ton more, and we're probably gonna have you back on because there's several other things that I want to cover, but you've shared a lot, and we've talked about systems and leadership and just your story that I think you can see it ingrained in you today of like the hard work and just the perseverance of you know you can get through anything based on what you've been through and what you've seen. What advice would you give those up and coming leaders or those that are like, hey man, I can relate to the younger version of you. I'm not where you're at today. Where would they start to kind of get on that journey and to get engaged? Because I think a lot of people, I find maybe they don't have a coach in their life yet, right? Which they should. But what advice would Victor give them to get on the path to finding that best version of themselves to start?
This is what I told my son yesterday, because my son was all frustrated from failing because I got him doing videos. He's working on videos and he did them all wrong.
Yeah.
And every time I do it on purpose because I know that he's going to fail. So this is one thing I do is I tell him, you're going to have to learn how to test, fail. And when you fail, don't count your failures. Count your lessons. You know,
I love that.
So what you learn from your failure? What did you learn?
Yes.
Those times that you fell. And then what are you going to do to improve with this information that you know? And then go right back in. But you lose when you quit.
Yeah.
And one thing I always tell myself is like, hey, Vic, hey, all this stuff is just literally all this stuff, like it's just materials. They can take it from you.
Yeah.
They, like I always say, they can take everything away from you, but they can't take away what you know.
That's right.
And you can get back up.
Yeah.
And that's it. They can take everything away from you, but they cannot take away what you know here. The only one who can take that is he's up there, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, he's up there.
And God's given us that, I believe, given us that insight and wisdom and the lessons. And I love how you frame that because I use the word lessons a lot. And that really is what we have to offer because when things are taken away, and I know, Coach uses this, Coach Burt will share this, is once you know better, you got to do better. And it's always that challenge or like even as an athlete, once the coach shows you there's a better way or an easier way or just a play that works, once you know it, you got to go execute it. And that's usually the gap that we all have to cross every day of, I know better, now I got to go do better.
Well, one thing I would say is knowledge is awesome. People always say knowledge is power. I'm like, no, knowledge times action equals results. So use that formula. Without action and with the knowledge, you ain't going to do nothing, man.
Oh, I love that though. I mean, that's it. Because you grow up, you hear these things, you're like, knowledge is power. Well, I got to take action.
Right? Like, action equals results, man.
Until people can read my mind, there's no power until I take action.
Yeah.
Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Anytime.
Let's share. So I know the book Conquer is out. Let's let everybody know, tell them where they can get the book, how they can find out more information and follow along with you on social.
Oh, you can find the book in Amazon. Just put Conquer and then put Victor Maya. That's Maya. And I did, it's on soft cover, Kindle, and also audio. And I read the book. I had to conquer that, man. That was hard. That was one of the most difficult things I've ever done because my grammar is bad. So I had to re-record over and over and over again. They're like, no, you're going too fast. Slow down. No, you're going too slow now. No, you said that word wrong. You say it like this. It's responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. I didn't know that. So it's on Amazon. And also you can find this hardcover in conquernation.com. But Conquer, I spelled it on purpose, CNQR, thenation.com.
Yeah.
Or just put victormaya.com and it'll direct you right to it.
I love it. And then it's the Victor Maya on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. The real Victor Maya.
Cool. Well, hey, it looks like one of our own, Lori, actually posted the link for Amazon. So you got some fans out there. Great job with Lori. And Craig, thanks for your comment. Pastor Chris. We got to connect back up. Some great people engaged. Hopefully you guys have found a ton of value. I know I have today. Make sure you follow along with Victor's journey. His journey is far from over, and he's a guy that's making an impact. So, man, I'm excited. Thank you for sharing with us today. And I know people will find value in this and how you've shared systems and just how you've overcome and you've conquered things that potentially could have gotten in the way, but you kept going. So appreciate you.
Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. Okay, guys, this has been another episode of the Brian Covey Show. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave us some feedback over on iTunes. You can go to www.briancovey.com to find more episodes. We'll continue to bring you more great guests like Victor so we can help you just level up, make sure you're living your life to the fullest. We'll catch you on the next episode. See you guys.
Subscribe, rate, and review The Brian Covey Show today. Go to briancovey.com.